Welcome to Remembering Smallville,
a Smallville rewatch podcast.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Brett. Now, I just have to say, before we even get started, did you just Jar Jar Binks me? You just Okie-dayed me. How dare you?
I say Okie
How
Day.
dare you?
I've said Okie Day since I was about 7 years old.
Sounds about right.
So
Jar Jar Binks it.
Yep.
I think he gets a bad rap. I like Jar Jar Binks.
Listen, it's actually not the most annoying character to me like a lot of people think.
Right.
But I will say that he is the reason why the Emperor is in power.
Just Jar Jar Binks or like his whole race of people? Because they all talk
Jar
the
Jar
same.
Binks.
He's the one who voted the emergency powers.
He did?
Yeah, he got
he's
conned
the one,
into it. And
yeah, he's the one who
that bought
announced
into
it.
And he said, yeah, I want to vote to give him emergency powers that he is the now Chancellor Supreme, Emperor Supreme. He's the one that made it happen. So he's actually the reason you I don't hate him for the annoying character. That just goes, you're the worst. You're the reason this exists.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought everyone was just racist.
Well, I will say this about Disney Star Wars is that if nothing else, it has made everybody like the prequels more.
Okay, sorry. To our banter.
Anyway, I think that might have just been it. But so this morning, I wanted to first announce that Kim is not here for the first half of our recording because she's a mother and mothers have things to do. My banter and my thought for today is, like how commercials are still a thing?
Oh my gosh. I know what you're talking about.
Do you ever watch a commercial and think, that commercial was so bad, I'll never buy that thing just because of the commercial?
Oh, I can think of one right now that I hate.
Tell us.
It's a Little Caesars commercial with Justin Jefferson. And he's talking about how Little Caesars stepped up their game with cheesy crust. And randomly, there's someone with a puppet and a high voice that goes, yeah, that's right, Justin. And he looks at him and goes, that's a no. Okay. It's the most obnoxious, weird thing. I could show it to you. It's painful. Just made me hate it that much worse.
But does that make you stop from eating Little Caesars?
I would definitely am anti-Little Caesars at the moment. Yeah.
I love it. Well, tell us about ours, Daniel.
Oh my gosh. Nicole's been complaining about this Burger King commercial for like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So I use Google Chrome on my laptop when I want to watch Hulu. And on my Google Chrome, I have a handy dandy little ad blocker. And so
Why doesn't that exist on phones?
Different operating system.
Someone invent that. $1 million idea.
It's also harder to prevent it in applications that are running. I never really get commercials, but Nicole gets them because she watches Hulu on her phone. And so she was watching it and she kept complaining about this Burger King terrible commercial. And I was like, why is it so bad? And then she showed it to me. And I will never eat at Burger King again. And if you look at the YouTube video for this specific commercial, that's what all the comments say. Like, I never want to eat here again. This made me no longer want to be a customer. Like, it's so bad. It's, that song, like...
Burger King's got a deal for you. Blah, blah, blah. Eat a hamburger. You did it. Like, it's so annoying, that like little jingle.
Yeah.
But they keep the jingle every time. They keep the same jingle. They just change whatever they're trying to sell.
So now it's like, BK melts. What about that? Do.
It just sounds so bad. It's so annoying. Every time it comes on, my day gets a little worse.
There's not enough words in their lyrics to match the music. And so they have to like extend words, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That almost never works. If you like sing certain church hymns, there are certain church hymns that do that way too much too. And it's like, okay, you're losing me here. But this is on a whole other level.
It's so bad. Just YouTube Burger King melts commercial and you will be disappointed. Because it's so terrible.
All right, everyone. If you're looking for disappointment in your life, seek it out by going online and looking this up. That sounds like the worst. Why would you seek this out? I'm just going to take your word for it.
Just to prove the point, because like Daniel hadn't heard it, and I was like, Daniel, you have to hear this commercial. It's the worst commercial. And so I showed it to him. He was like, it's terrible. And so sometimes I'll have my phone like speaker on, and a commercial will come on, and you just hear that opener of BK melts. It's so annoying.
As podcasters, I'm here to speak out for Burger King and Little Caesars. We would be open to you supporting our podcast if you'd like, and we will stop anti-advertising.
It's true.
Yes, it's true.
And if this has made you hungry for Burger King, then Burger King needs to pay us.
Seriously.
Let's get into this episode.
Yes. Season 3, Episode 7, Magnetic.
In this, our first episode of our double feature, a rebellious Lana lands in jail after she becomes enamored by a fellow student. Clark discovers that Lana's new friend has magnetic powers and has power to influence emotions.
So this episode, we're going to be hitting it quickly because we want to talk about Shattered, and it needs a lot more time than Magnetic.
Well, maybe before we get into like some of the things we want to talk about with the episode, let's just give a general things that you liked and hated about it, eh? First of all, I wanted to ask this question of Nicole. Is the guy who plays Seth cute?
Yeah, sure. He's a little short.
I mean, if you guys ever watched any of the Air Bud movies, you'll recognize him.
Is that what he's from?
Yep.
Even the first one?
Yep, Josh.
Oh.
Yeah.
That
Well-
movie's too sad. I can't even think about it.
Yeah, it's too sad. But anyway, that's interesting.
Yeah,
so,
he's good
so you see
looking.
how Lana can get with, like, kind of be okay with the idea of him at first, I guess?
No.
Oh.
Because she's not into him. Never has been. Never will be. The whole premise of Smallville, it's just so stressful because Seth was just your normal average kid working at the county fair. Just doing his thing, trying to give her a free garbage snow globe.
That stupid guy. Like, here's the thing. I understand being upset about if you're playing a game and you can't, and you're not winning, and then this girl who's doing worse than you can possibly imagine because she throws terribly gets a free prize because the kid likes her. I understand being like, hey, that's not right. Like, that's against the rules. Like, that's unfair. But you don't crawl over the stupid table
And then chase him through the park.
And then hit him in the
smash
head.
him in the head with the snow globe. I mean, meteor globe.
Yeah. No. There's not logic to it really, and I've always felt this way about those kind of county fair games. I do like to play them. I go into it knowing that I am more than paying for what that prize is. I don't care
100%.
if it's $3 and I happen to not spill all the milk jugs, right? I get the biggest prize. Fine. I maybe made out with $5. It's not that big of a deal. None of the prizes are actually worth that much.
I agree. That guy sucks. Seth gets a knock on the noggin with glass, meteor rock, and whatever oil they used inside the snow globe.
And I just feel bad for the kid. Like,
I
a
know.
lot of
He didn't
these,
do anything except try to do a little flirting.
in a later episode, you get to kind of get a revisit of some of our old baddies. They're still bad. They're not like all that tragic anymore, but it's still sad that how the meteor rock can just totally obliterate your reasonable.
Thinking?
Yeah, it's so sad. It just destroys the person so fast.
Yeah, Seth goes from, I just want to give her a free gift. It's the last day of the fair.
because I like her.
It's the worst crime I've ever committed in my life.
Yeah.
Was giving her a free snow globe.
To pulling a Bonnie and Clyde?
Yes. So Seth needs an MRI. Sure. Inside the MRI, the machine freaks out, green, glowy. Ah!
Here's my little nerd theory about how this happened. There are probably magnetized meteor rocks. A couple of them.
I
And
don't know about
it-
that.
Why not?
Because he's inside a giant magnet.
I think that's why it's wigging out. Is
He's
it's the,
in an MRI.
The polarization of the magnets.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean, is like there must have been magnetized meteor rock in his bloodstream plus the magnetic field of the MRI machine. I'm just saying that's my nerd theory about
I think that's true.
why it reacted the way it did, because I feel like not every dose of meteor rock would have had that reaction inside the MRI machine. That's just my nerd theory.
I thought it was a creative use of meteor rock. We've seen a lot of, I was in ice cold lake, therefore I have ice powers.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, this was different.
Magnet.
I did appreciate how he kind of reacted to the MRI machine and how it turns on and the sounds it's made. If you've ever been in an MRI machine, it does sound really disconcerting. There's like clicking sounds and really big shifting sounds of the mechanism that sounds really disconcerting when you're underneath it. It's not like the most pleasant experience. Let me just tell you right now, listener, if you've got heckin' anxiety, you might not want to do an MRI machine anytime soon. It'll really
It's not a soothing experience, eh?
I don't have major anxiety, but it was anxiety ridden for me.
So Seth touches Lana and you see like a little green spark. Whenever he touches her, she goes from indifferent about him to like, okay, sure, whatever you say, bro. Seth in his alone time, practices his Matilda powers.
Yep,
Yeah.
Matilda for
Did
sure.
you get Matilda vibes
Oh,
a little
absolutely.
bit? Like him
Definitely
trying to eat the
Matilda.
pudding and pulling the cart. And I liked how it was all relatively practical effects, the push and the pull of his magnetic powers. So do you guys feel like he's more Magneto or Matilda?
We already had a Matilda, if you remember.
Yes. Yes.
The boy that makes everything move,
Adam.
the painter. Yep.
Brody, yeah.
I feel like it's more Magneto, but he's definitely not as mastermind.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
As
he's just a
Magneto.
kid, right? And then on top of that, you've got the attraction of the
mental
emotion.
magnetics.
So
yeah.
he can attract emotions or I guess fond feelings.
Oh,
plus
no. Oh, no.
objects.
That's not what it is.
Because
What?
I was going to say, did we just get a Jasper reference?
Oh, no.
No, because he doesn't manipulate any emotion that he wishes. Like,
Yeah.
he can only apparently make someone attracted to him. Why wouldn't he just
No,
do that on
I don't
everyone?
even think it's necessarily attraction. He's creating a literal magnetic pull.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah,
So I
get
kept
that.
writing like he's just pull
I like
to like
that.
influence Lana. So he's not. I don't think he's necessarily influencing like attraction or whatever. I think he's literally pulling Lana to him with magnet
see that.
with mental magnetics.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that it wasn't well defined how
No.
this thing works.
Even
but it's
Clark's
fun.
like, I have a theory, and we're like, okay, I guess we'll go with it.
There is something about this episode that I did really appreciate with Clark, though, is that Clark actually is intelligent about how he goes about things. At one point, he confronts Lana about it when he starts to understand what's going on a little bit, because he kind of listens to them when they go to the fair later, and Seth turns on the equipment so that they can ride a ride and all this stuff. Clark listens in on some of their conversations and looks at them. So now he knows that Seth is a meteor freak. But it's interesting because Clark confronts Lana and is like, if he's like magnetic, then I need you to understand that the longer the magnet is attached to something, the more powerful the pull
Traction
gets.
and the pull.
And so I really appreciated that. And then there's later in the end when Clark actually beats him, he uses physics in a really interesting way to do it. I love when Clark can be smart and not just use his strength.
Yeah.
Sure. So tell us, Nicole, tell us a little bit about Mason. Who's this Mason character?
So Lex, we've been learning this season, in these past few episodes, is getting some theories about his dad, because he learned in the Relic episode that his grandparents weren't wealthy. They were in the slums, and that there was a fire in the tenement where they lived, leaving Lex all the life insurance, allowing him to jumpstart his business life into the man he is now. So Lex has been researching this. Lex is now getting a theory that Morgan Edge and his father Lionel were in cahoots working together, and he's got his private eye looking into it. His private eye has discovered that Chloe has also been looking into Lionel's life. And so Lex and Chloe chat a little bit, and Lex is like, you don't need to stop looking into what you're looking into. It's not safe. And Chloe's like, I can do whatever I want. It's just for school. And he's like, no, it's not. Let me prove it to you. He takes Chloe to the morgue, which dimly lit, I'll say.
Dimly lit, also kind of creepy. Hey,
What? I
teenager,
know.
come with me to the morgue.
I know.
He does actually say something about that. He kind of made me giggle where he's like, no, Chloe, I'm just bringing teenage girls to the morgue because it's fun. I really loved that because it was a little bit of an acknowledgement of just how weird this situation is.
Yeah. And so his private investigator's dead now. And he's saying, this is because of Lionel. Stop looking. It's not okay. And if you did find something, like, I'll help protect you. And she's like, oh, you protected this guy?
Yeah. Well, and for our listeners, right, the reason, again, that Chloe is even looking into Lionel is she's trying to find her way out from under his thumb.
Yep.
Right? She's trying to say, hey, I don't like that he's got control over my dad's job, got control over me. He's holding this over me. I need to get something over Lionel. Brave move for a high school kid, but it's very Chloe-esque to do this. For her to get a reality check that it's not just about getting out from under his thumb. It's dangerous what she's touching into.
And that's pretty much our B plot.
Yes.
And in the end, Chloe, she does go to Lex and says, I need help.
And she's honest with him.
And she tells him everything. He was asking me to research Clark, and I told I didn't want to, and I was trying to figure out a way to blackmail him, and Lex is like, okay, yeah, and you need my help. So that's kind of what's going on with that whole B storyline. But back to Seth and Lana. They go on a date to the fair. Seth tells her that he has magnetic powers, which Lana is like, I love when boys share their secrets. And she's super into it, but not into it enough that she's going to get felt up on the Ferris wheel. Seth tries to magnetically unzip her shirt, and she's like, wait, I'm not ready for that. And then Clark's like, oh, I'm not ready for it either. And he pulls the ride down. And, like, he's just there. And his excuse is awful. And then Lana says, Clark, are you stalking me?
Oh, it's the worst. I can't. And it happens again. And I know I sound like a broken record. I am sorry, listeners. But Lana's ability to forgive everyone except Clark is
frustrating.
Ridiculous.
It's so frustrating.
I know, especially because you know that everything Clark does is to protect you, you dumb bitch.
Well,
Daniel.
Accurate. Now, the more frustrating part, even than that, is that she just goes with anyone else and she's understanding of everyone else and their challenges. But if Clark missteps, or even if he's stepping in the right direction, it's never right for her.
Yeah.
If there was ever any question as to why I'm in the I Hate Lana club, this is it. I was starting to kind of forget because I was like, oh yeah, Kristen Crick's really great. Or like Lana's not too bad. And then I was like, oh duh, this is why I hate Lana. It's because they drag this on forever. Eventually, Lana does leave the show. And
to be fair, there are episodes where Lana is better, and she does get better in the series. She does, and she starts to become her own person. But I'm just saying that this right now is definitely a tick mark against Lana. It's in the I can't stand this.
Yeah, well,
feature.
I mean, you have to acknowledge she is being magnetically pulled towards Seth, and she can't help it but be on his side and but stand next to him and be all in on Seth. So Lana, this is what blows my mind. Lana is just her normal self in her normal life, and she's been magnetically zapped by Seth for a day or so. And at some point behind the story, he says, you should dress sluttier. And she's like, I will. And so they're making out in the Talon. She's decided that hoop earrings is going to be the way to make her slutty, which is a thing that Lana does. Lana only wears hoop earrings when she's being like a dirty girl. I don't know why hoop earrings determines that.
Noted.
That's because hoop earrings are very, very filthy.
Yes.
Are they? Okay. Noted. Noted.
So Seth suddenly decides, let's run away and start our lives together.
And she's like, okay.
So she steals all the money from the Talon's register, and Lex sees it. He comes by, I guess, because he's probably heard that the Talon's absolutely empty and there's no one in there in the middle of the day. And is like, what's going on? Lana and Seth run away in a stolen yellow Mustang. Clark goes to help, and he runs ahead of them and melts the road, just causing so much taxpayer dollars out the window.
It'll dry hard.
It was probably
again.
the next county over.
Yeah.
Good thing that they slowed down quite a bit before rolling into that.
It would have been a real problem if they were really going fast.
One thing I thought of when this happened in the Talon with Lex and Lana and her storming out, it reminded me back in season 2 when Lex was under the persuasion of Hot Lips McGee, if you remember her.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she decided they're closing the Talon on Lana, and Lana was like, this isn't fair. How do we do this? And Lex eventually fixed everything, and he said, I'm writing it into the contract so this can't happen again. But it reminded me of this situation because there's a reason Lex is super understanding to say, look, I also took a shot at the Talon that was really not in my control. Now you're in that spot. So that's why Lex is able to overlook this and just say, I'm not pressing charges, I'm not doing this.
Seems to always be able to tell if somebody's not acting themselves. And so he's like, you're being crazy right now. Something's going on that's not normal. I'm going to overlook that.
And also, what's the most they have in the register at the coffee shop? $100?
Oh, I don't care if it's a couple thousand.
So
he's like, that's nothing.
I also think he's like, it's just a couple $100. Like, that's nothing. I just think relatively, if someone stole 50 cents from you, you'd be like, it's 50 cents. It's not that big of a deal versus like a couple thousand.
Yeah.
So in Lex's mind, $100 is nothing. And he's like, they're not going to get far anyway. It's just teenager rebellion. I was a rebellious teenager. So he's very forgiving.
So again, I'm just pointing this out, not to throw more shade at Nell, but it's things like this where you say, I get you just let Lana go live with Chloe and her dad, but there is zero parental oversight or any check-in.
Right.
Do
you think anyone called Nell in Metropolis and said, just so you know, Lana got arrested She's in jail.
Right.
Nell don't care. Nell's with new boyfriend.
No, Sarah, she's with Dean.
It's kind of interesting. Lana sometimes makes choices that you would expect a kid of a single parent to make.
Sure.
But she also is too mature for a kid of a single parent sometimes too.
That's the problem with television shows. I was watching Vampire Diaries at the request of one of my friends, Kim, and there are no parental figures in that show. And it's like, I can't do it. Parents are there for a reason. They're part of like family. They're part of growing up. Putting all these teenagers in parentless situations breaks my brain.
Yeah, it breaks your immersion.
I hate it.
Because immersion is important, in my opinion, for a show to feel good. The more often you break the immersion in a jarring way, the harder it is for you to stay on board. Luckily, Smallville ups the immersion quite a bit over time, and it really, really helps for me. But if it never had, I don't think I ever would have liked Smallville. Because when you break the immersion too much by not having basic rules and stuff that actually make sense for the world you're in,
like
it's hard to buy into it.
If Clark had parents, Martha and Jonathan, but like never talked to them and they weren't in the story, you'd be like, where are his parents?
Right.
But luckily we have those parents in this story, which I think really helps ground it into reality more so than other science.
Maybe that's one more reason why I don't really like Lana.
Well, and now I'm going to sound like I'm just arguing with myself. In defense of Lana, I actually do see that she is more mature.
No,
than
she
others.
is mature.
She is mature, but this is I think a more true to life thing. You get kids that are very mature, but because they're still only 17 years old,
16,
17, right? They will still make decisions that you'll say, "Wow, is that almost an adult?" And then you see decisions like this and you go, nope, they're still a teenager. So she is more mature. Her parents died. She made decisions to run this coffee shop. She's living basically on her own, which I can understand from my own personal life experience. Mm-hmm. There's some maturity that comes there, and there's things that she's learned, and she's grown that way to be mature. And then you see decisions like this, and you say, and there's still the teenager. There's still room to become an adult there. Not defending her, but I definitely see that there's the maturity, and then the reminder that she's still a teenager.
I would like to point out that they are now 16, and you know how we know that? Because Lex says so in this episode. He says, you're 16-year-old kids, so Nicole, you can no longer have any excuse about seasons 1 and 2 when they are 14 and 15.
I just don't like that. I just don't care. I just can't do it. You've told me that when you read certain books, you have to up the age of the characters.
It's true.
So that's what I have to do.
Yeah, I do that with Fablehaven.
Yep.
Where Kendra has to be 16 at the beginning, otherwise none of it makes sense to me. So yeah, I can concede that, but they are now 16.
Now 16, but they are juniors, so 16, turning 17.
Yeah, they'll end up 17.
So how this whole Bonnie and Clyde thing wraps up, Lana is in jail, and she tells Clark, I'm so sorry. Seth had a pull on me. I'm blah, blah, blah. But all this whole time she's lying.
Yeah.
Seth comes back to break her out of jail. He gets a gun. They go to the fair, and their plan is, let's hide in the fair, climb into one of the fair moving trucks, and it will take us away because the town's being blocked because of our transgressions. So the fair is about to be packed up, yet the fog machine's on. The bubbles are on. The lights are on. In the love tunnel or whatever the hell ride they're on.
Maybe they're not the first ones to come use it one last second.
All the fair employees are like, this is where we do things. Keep the bubbles on. And so Clark shows up to save the day. Lana is told, go wait outside, conveniently, so that Clark can use his powers. Seth shoots Clark and like hits Clark in the shoulder. And he like brushes off the bullets off his shoulder. And then Seth throws a right on Clark. Then he says to Clark, you can't fight physics. And then Clark grabs some electrical piping. Yeah, electrical piping. And hits and he pushes it onto the metal that he's touching, and it says, neither can you. And it like reverses the polarity, I guess.
Yeah, and he thought about that. He thought, okay, he's got a magnetic force. An electromagnetic force is going to change the polarity. I really liked that. It's a really, really smart way for Clark to actually solve the situation.
Yep. And it pulls Seth, and he gets zapped again. which I assume took away his powers, or
Nah, probably not.
who
Probably
knows?
knocked him out, and he ends up some center.
And then he
getting
gets
help.
sent to a plastic prison in the Pentagon. I don't know.
Or to Belle Reeve in the plastic area.
Yeah, who knows?
Plastic prison in the Pentagon is for
And then-
Magneto only, and he's not that cool.
And then Lana apologizes. She gets community service. Lex forgives her 100%. End scene. Thoughts?
I think we should just call this a man and move on.
A magnet.
Magnet episode.
It's definitely a
It was fine. It was fun. Like, it didn't feel like it took forever. It kind of moved quickly, but
It was a villain of the day episode.
It
and
was.
For me, most of those are always going to be man. It did
But
move some plot a little
the
bit.
Chloe stuff was bigger.
Yeah, that's getting slightly more intense with every single episode. And as we get into the next one, which is part of this double feature episode today, we will really delve into the seriousness. And
Yeah,
Nicole just might cry.
I'm done with this episode. Let's move on to Shattered.
Shout out to all meteor freaks. We can't help you, but you can help us by following us on social media at Remembering Smallville, and our link is in the description.
We're going to now talk about Season 3, Episode 8, Shattered.
Someone tries to kill Lex at the mansion before he can take information about Lionel's dirty dealings to the authorities, and Lionel announces Lex has had a psychotic breakdown and needs to be institutionalized.
And now we have Kim back. Welcome back, Kim.
Woo woo! I'm here.
This episode was kind of funny because Nicole and I were watching it separately, and she watched it before me, and I was just trying to make and eat dinner for myself, and Nicole was just watching and groaning sadly, and
It's so sad.
she was like, "Oh, Lex," like the whole time, and I was like, "Are you okay?" She had little misty
Okay,
eyes.
well, I need to talk to Kim about this before we even dive in. Daniel, Brett, and I all knew that Lex was being poisoned / given drugs so that he looks crazy.
Yeah.
But you didn't know that.
I didn't.
Talk me through your thought process of this episode overall before we dive into it.
I thought for sure he was being poisoned.
Okay.
I know that Lex is a little cuckoo, but I knew he wasn't that cuckoo. And so I was like, really? Would Lionel... Yes, he would. So...
Lionel's the bad guy for the whole season. That's how he
know.
is.
And this was... You're right. This was heartbreaking. I was watching it and I was like, what? What? No, what?
Watching with Kim, it was actual, like you could see it physically on her face. You could see actual anger.
Oh, I hate Lionel so bad.
Okay,
He's such a good villain.
I love Lionel, but not right now. I am so mad at him for this.
I cannot believe
This
it.
is the most unforgivable thing I can think a person could do to someone.
Well, think about it, Nicole, right? We have anxiety.
Yeah.
So making someone feel like they're crazy, that's like the biggest fear of someone like us. I feel like, because I already feel like I'm crazy sometimes. And so for someone to do that to me, I'm like, oh, that's bad. That's bad.
With just the amount of people that he had to pay off,
Oh my God.
the amount of people that had to be in on it.
It's gross.
So let's break this down. And we're gonna have to talk about like scene by scene because it's so much. I can't believe this isn't like a season finale. How is this just like episode 8?
Yeah, it's not even like a mid-season
It's
big. It's
so
just,
much happens. I can't even.
It's well, so actually to bring that point home, it actually is a mid-season.
Oh, is it technically?
Is 8 mid-season?
It's not. It's not like it doesn't feel like it. But I looked at the release dates. So this episode releases and it comes out November 19th of 2003, and then the next episode is not until January 14th.
Oh, so they had like a
of
big
two-
kind of a
It was like a
hiatus.
2-month break right after, and we'll get to it as we break it down. But right after Lex sees Clark throw a car
Yeah.
and knows his secret,
Yeah.
and it breaks for 2 months. I
That's
want you
cool.
to imagine that's a cool break.
Well, yeah. So this episode opens in Metropolis. Morgan Edge has a total face reconstruction and his vocal cords, which is very convenient because then you just pick a new actor.
So I looked this up because I'm like, they do this in soap operas.
Oh, yeah.
When somebody leaves.
They get a new face.
A crazy story about a new face. So Morgan Edge was recast mid-season because of creative differences with the original actor.
Well, there you go.
So
And I think it works perfectly.
Yeah.
I think it works. It actually works in the storyline
Yeah.
because he was shot and like Lionel's
Presumed
looking for
dead,
him.
right.
And so it's like, oh, if I want to come back, I better not.
Well, and he's terrified of Clark.
Yeah,
So
so
if
he's
I look
carrying
different,
around
that's
his
better.
and he's carrying around his
Yes.
permanent kryptonite necklace.
Yes, which I loved.
Yeah.
Morgan Edge has a kryptonite necklace that he wears around his hand.
It's like
Kind of
prayer beads.
Prayer beads, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I said, Lex, what timing? He finds Edge in this garbagey warehouse where he's had his facial reconstruction. And Lex says, will you still sweat the same? So I know it's you, Edge. How did he get a sweat? We'll never know. Let's not think about it too deep.
Well, it's Lex. He's got money to throw around.
And what's great is that Lex has thought this through. If he doesn't come out of this building in 5 minutes, all hell will break loose. And he tells Edge, Lex has a camera. He tells Edge, it's time for you to confess about what you guys did to my grandparents and that fire. And believe it or not, Edge does. He makes the confession.
But that's because he's got a deeper plan with Lionel, and he knows it's not going to matter.
Is that true?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
This was that's what's creepy when you say don't think too deep about how he found out about where he was. It's all part of Lionel and Edge's plan. Is Lex got to find this out so that we can trap him further and further into it.
Oh.
Like, it's so deep because you know that as soon as Lex walked out of this building, they were redressing it.
Yeah, they probably had people standing by really close until the minute that Lex left.
And the thing is, it probably was a sweatshop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it was taken down only temporarily and then put back up. That's a good point.
You have a 2-hour lunch.
And they just told all the workers we're fumigating for a week
Yeah.
or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be that hard
No,
because they would never know.
no, and then it's back to work. You know?
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I love his scars, how they're just right in the middle of his face on
Yeah.
both sides.
Yeah.
Got to keep them cheekbones.
He's like, snatch him, snatch him.
This Morgan Edge actor looks like an old Liv Schreiber
Yeah.
from Wolverine, if you have ever watched those movies, listeners. That's kind of what I kept thinking of the entire time I saw him.
I could totally see that. I love Liev Schreiber.
Dang, a picture of him right now looks like he's getting pretty close.
Then we go to the mansion with Lex. He's avoiding his dad because his dad's trying to call him. And he's like, not now. Lex puts away his evidence in the safe. And then a ninja comes to try and kill Lex.
ninja.
He comes down through the window. He kills Darius. He shoots out things. Lex jumps out of the window and hurts his leg. And he goes and hides in the Kent farm.
I'm like, Lex, nothing is safe in your home. Like,
No.
take that paperwork to Clark and be like, guard this with your life.
But he doesn't know Clark's a hero.
I know, but nobody's going to search for it on the farm.
True. So Lex runs to the Kent farm. Clark finds Lex hiding in the loft. And Lex has a cut on his head and he says, no hospitals, no police. And he's saying it's my dad or Morgan Edge.
I
And
freaking
yeah.
loved these scenes. They were so good.
Yes.
Holy crap, Michael Rosenbaum.
Oh, I
His
know.
acting it is top notch.
He has said in his podcast that this episode he called it lightning in a bottle.
Oh, really?
Oh, I bet.
And I believe it. Like, I can't even.
well,
get
his
more into
acting
it,
just
too.
gets better and better through
Oh,
the
I know.
episode.
And I love that he has that crick in his neck, that pain.
Yeah, he does such a good job with that. Oh,
Yeah.
And Clark doesn't tell his dad that Lex is in the barn. He does later, but at first he's like, okay, Lex, I'm totally with you. I'll keep your secret. I'll go to the mansion and just pretend like I'm looking for you and kind of play dumb. So Clark goes. The safe is empty. Everything's normal.
and the security
it's been
guard
perfectly
says,
cleaned.
Darius.
Wasn't even on duty last night. Clark finds a broken piece of glass, which is like the physical evidence that Lex needs.
The only physical evidence.
Right, because the whole place has been cleaned, and Lex even says the cleaners. They sent cleaners in.
It reminds me that if you've ever watched the John Wick movies, the people in the secret organization that John Wick used to work for, they have these cleaners that they can order in when they need a bunch of stuff taken care of, like dead bodies, damage, and everything. And then when the cleaners leave, it's as if it never happened.
Yeah, that's a very common thing in a lot of television.
Really, really well done in John Wick, and that's just what it reminded me of when I was watching this.
At this point, I knew Lex was telling the truth. I was like, what's going on?
Because of the piece of glass?
Yes. And I'm like, why would you waste half an episode of something happening if it wasn't real.
Right.
So, yeah.
So Clark goes to Lex in the barn and he says, here's the glass. The place was cleaned. And Lex says, well, Darius is at the bottom of Crater Lake right now. They for sure he's dead. I saw him die. They cleaned it. You'll never see him again. Clark, you need to go talk to Chloe because she kind of knows what's going on. So Clark goes to the torch. And I have to mention this. There's an article on the wall behind Chloe. And it's called Alien Love Slave.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's true.
The only thing I want to
Alien
point
Love
out
Slave.
in this episode is that Chloe's hair is top notch for this season and for pretty much all the beginning seasons. Her this is her best hair.
Her little flippy hair.
It gets like more classy in later seasons.
Because they grow up, yeah.
but
we all get more classy.
Of all of her angst hair, this is the best one. And I was just noticing that.
So
yeah.
Clark tells Chloe, Lex is in my barn. We got to go talk to him. So Clark brings Chloe. I guess school is just not happening today, or it's now 3 p.m. I don't know. Lionel's actually at the Kent farm, and he tells all the people, he had a psychotic break.
Did you
I
like
need to
his
find my
his
son.
fake? Oh, it's Miss Sullivan, isn't it?
Oh, yes. He pretends he doesn't know Chloe at all.
Gross.
Which is how you have to do it, I guess.
And the acting by him is so good.
I was just going to say, I love the really good acting of John Glover in general, but then when John Glover acts as Lionel acting, it's just, it's so good.
So he does this thing, and every master manipulator does this. He makes you think like you're the biggest idiot for thinking a certain way. And he's like, but why would you think that? And he plays all innocent, and I'm just like, oh, you're so good at it, and I hate it.
Well, what's crazy about Lionel is when he says, I love my son, he's not lying.
True.
When he says, I would do anything for my son, he's not lying.
Yeah,
But
he would
he
do
would-
anything to his son too.
Yeah, I know. He's literally both sides of a coin at the same time,
Yeah.
which
Makes
is
a good villain.
crazy. And Lex is watching through a crack in the barn, and he hears his dad telling him that he's had psychotic break, that he's having a relapse, and that he has paranoid delusions. So Lex is hearing all this, and he's like, no, But then I guess him hearing his dad triggers something in Lex, and he starts hallucinating. And
well, and that's what makes it such a good episode is he is having hallucinations. He is going a bit cuckoo, but Lionel's playing off that because that's what a
he's
psycho would
adding
do.
to it. You know, it's the ultimate gaslight here. That's
oh,
going on.
totally. So how did you feel about the blanket scene with Lex singing to a blanket?
I was so confused.
Okay, tell me about that.
What does he say when he's holding the blanket? Anything? Is he singing?
He's
I
singing
can't
like
remember.
"Hush, Little Baby."
You wake the baby.
Okay. So I automatically knew it had something to do with his little baby brother,
Julian. Mhm.
right? And I was just like, what is going on? Because I've never seen Lex act like this before,
Right.
about his brother. So I was just confused.
Clark, at this point, after he sees Lex singing to a blanket, decides, I have to tell my parents. So he tells them, and he also tells them that Morgan Edge is alive and has a new face. And his parents think, no, that's just Lex being crazy. Edge is dead. Come on. Which I think they're telling for their own little bit of copium. Like, no, we can't have a crime boss alive.
Right, but also if Lex is in there singing to a blanket about a dead brother, then everything he set up to this point, when there's
Right.
no evidence that someone was shot, that there's no this, then everything gets thrown out, and that's exactly how Lionel's plan works. Is to say, if one of these things is on the crazy spectrum, then all of it is.
Yeah.
And that's why the Kents are completely on board with, nope, that's not true. Morgan Edge is gone.
Lex hears them talking in the front yard and comes out and is like, Clark, are you with me or against me? And Clark's like, no, I'm with you, Lex.
Which I loved.
Do you know something interesting about Julian in general that I wanted to say? Julian would have been about 5 to 7-ish years younger than Lex.
Okay.
So Clark's age.
So if Julian had survived, he'd be basically Clark's age.
Yeah.
So if that gives you a little bit more perspective into
Why he needs Clark in his life. Oh my gosh, really? I can't wait to see how this unfolds because I know nothing about this. Is it Julian?
Yeah.
Julian. And Julian is an interesting one, just as you want to point out. because Lionel Luthor and Lex Luthor and Lucas Luthor, Julian Luthor is the exception.
Lillian
Luthor.
Why?
Don't know.
So there's something unique about. I mean, just to point out that there's a reason that there's something special
He's
about
just
Julian.
different. Yeah.
Okay.
Lex goes to look for proof that Morgan Edge is alive, because then if he does, it proves he's not crazy. So Clark goes with Lex to Metropolis, and they go into the surgery room where he found Morgan Edge just the night before. And it's a fully functioning sweatshop.
This made me so mad.
And it's all part of the cover-up. Lex kind of freaks out and kind of loses it, and he threatens one of the workers. And Lex has that glass shard that's his physical evidence. And it doesn't really go over well in the sweatshop. And so they head back to the mansion.
I'm not going to lie. When the sweatshop scene happened, I was starting to
question.
Believe, a little bit.
Exactly, because that's the whole point. Because now even Clark, because you're kind of in the point of view of Clark, where, I have no reason to question Lex.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I do have a reason to question Lex.
Yeah.
Everyone's telling me that maybe I shouldn't just believe Lex.
The writers and directors were so good at making us feel all the feels during this episode.
Oh, I did.
I don't believe him. I believe him. Oh,
Right.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So Lex goes back to the mansion. Darius is there. He's not dead. And Clark's like, what? And then the therapist shows up, and Lex has the glass. He's like, what about this glass? Come on. And you can tell Lex is just like on the edge, just from being gaslit, because how else are you supposed to feel? Because you're not crazy, but if everyone else is telling you you're crazy,
You know
then
what,
are you?
Well, you know what's great to do when you're feeling a little crazy? Just take a couple more drinks of alcohol.
Seriously. She explains away the glass and says, well, the window was broken, Lex. You threw a vase. Which, is that vase made of titanium?
Right.
Because there's the perfectly whole vase.
Yeah. You're
Don't
like, what is
vases
that?
normally break if you throw them in
Yeah.
a window?
Uh-huh.
But no. Must be like metal or something.
I guess.
Lex pulls a gun on everybody. And this is when I started to get emotional, because you just think about the year Lex has had.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, there's too much.
It's so sad.
He met someone, thought he was going to have a happy wedding, ends up on a deserted island for 3 months by himself. And then he comes home, learns that his whole life and history is a lie, that his dad was working with a crime lord. He starts uncovering this horrible thing that would just it breaks who you are as a person, because it's like, well, my dad's a murderer.
Yeah. You're like, I knew my dad was everything but that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm being told I'm crazy.
So sad.
And Clark, he even says, maybe I am crazy. I don't even know anymore.
Well, and it's these times where I'm like, no wonder Lex ends up being the
Seriously.
villain. I
Yes.
feel so bad. And they did so good at making us love him and understand why he becomes a villain.
Yeah. Because imagine what's going on. His mental thought process, his internal monologue, has just got to be going and going. Of, am I crazy? No, I'm not crazy. No, I'm not crazy. No, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I saw it. I was there. But everyone is telling me I'm crazy. But I can't be crazy. Julian?
That's my only
Crazy?
safe place.
I was crazy once. They put me in a rubber room with bats. It drove me crazy. Crazy? I was crazy once. They put me in a rubber room with bats. They drove me crazy. Crazy? I was crazy
No,
once.
Daniel, stop.
They put me in a rubber room with bats. They drove me crazy.
Have you been drugging him, Nicole?
No, he doesn't do it himself.
Okay, so then we have to bring Lana into this somehow, right?
I know.
Almost a good episode, and then Lana shows up.
I know.
She needed to be in it.
This makes me so bad. So mad. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So Lex recruits Clark one more time. I swear I'm not crazy, Clark. And Clark says, I believe you. Let's keep you safe. So he takes Lex to the stables and says, wait here. I'll get Lana's help because she knows where the stables are. I'll have her bring some food. And
Let's
then
keep you safe
she'll babysit
near
you for a little bit.
Horses.
Right.
Death machines.
Clark says, Lex is being drugged. He's not himself. Stay here and babysit. And I got to go talk to Chloe. So Chloe and Clark meet up. And Chloe does tell Clark, Lex did have a psychotic break when he was younger. And it's eerily similar to what happened in the barn. Lex, when he was at school by himself, he was caught singing to a blanket.
Yeah, a rolled up blanket, and he was calling it Julian. And so this adds to Clark's potential doubting of Lex, and it just makes it all more foggy, which is so good, like really good on the writers. When we come back to the stable, Lana is being sweet. She's offering Lex some coffee, probably.
It's chamomile tea.
Oh, is it chamomile tea? Sorry. She's offering him some chamomile tea, and he's like, is it drugged? And he loses his mind. It's drugged, isn't it? And he throws everything away, and he shoves Lana into a stall with a horse, and the horse stomps on her. And she would be dead.
Yes.
Dead.
Or so much more injured than she is in like the next episode.
Yeah.
Like that horse was like pounding her again
her
and
hips
again
and
and
pelvis.
again. I was like, oh my
She'd be in a body cast. if
Yeah, she would be
survived.
done.
Her hip would be shattered, not just like
Yeah.
out of line.
But I'm okay. I'm okay with downplaying that injury because it's just like too much.
Yeah.
Well, do you like the visual of her
Twisted
Her
leg.
leg totally twisted.
completely mangled?
Yeah.
That's for our listeners. That's at minute 25 seconds. Sorry, 25 minutes 55 seconds. Look at her leg, just completely mangled.
It is ruined. So Lex carjacks someone. And fortunately for Lex, that car has a gun in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the likelihood in a lot of those places of a car having a gun in it is pretty high.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you see the giant rifle just mounted in the back window.
Seriously?
I mean, if I didn't have my guns all lost in a boating accident,
They'd be mounted to your back
if
window.
you carjacked me, you might find a gun in there.
So Clark goes to the hospital to see Lana. She's on a ventilator. Lionel is there. And Lionel blames Clark for all of it. Because Lionel says, this is all because of you. It's your fault.
You're making it worse.
Lex is having a psychotic break. You refuse to believe me and the doctor and your parents. You're just doing your own thing. You're only believing Lex and he's cuckoo bananas. So this is all your fault, which is true, I guess. Like, Clark don't involve Lana.
But who else is Clark going to call? There's only like 4 people in the show that
Yeah.
don't believe at the moment, you know? So
Yeah.
And so Clark decides, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
he does one of my favorite things he does in this season.
What?
I love Clark's rampage.
Okay, tell me about it.
I don't know if you've ever watched the show Archer. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. It's a terrible show. But there's this really funny episode where the main character has cancer and he finds out that there's this secret organization that is like stealing cancer drugs from cancer patients, and so he goes on a rampage and just essentially starts killing all these people in this organization as he works his way through it to find who's behind it all. And that feels very similar to Clark's rampage. Like, he is on the verge of severely or completely just straight up killing everybody that he finds in order to get to helping Lex. I love the ferocity that Clark takes in his efforts to find the bottom of this and get to Morgan Edge and stop everything. It's just one of my favorite things that Clark does in this season, I think. It's such a fun rush to watch him just be like, you're going to tell me right now or I break your arm, because he goes to Darius and Darius is alive and he's like, you're in on it. And so he tackles Darius to the ground. I love that he's like, I've got real farm boy strength, you know, like this farm boy has a lot of strength, doesn't he? You know, it's just such a good little scene.
When he tells the little sniper guy, tell me who your boss is or I'll keep squeezing.
Yeah, I love that. I love his just little rampage in this episode. It's so good. And it's just it shows very, very well how much Clark does love Lex.
Yes.
That's a friend. Like, I'm coming, I'm going to do this for my friend.
My brother-in-law once said, I didn't understand loving children to the point where like you would do anything until I had kids. And he's like, if somebody took my kids, I would murder a whole village in order to get them back if I had to. Like, that kind of parental feeling. And Clark's got that, but for somebody who's essentially his brother.
Yeah.
And I love it so much.
Yeah.
And so while he's doing his rampage,
So's Lex.
doing probably a similar rampage, but a little bit crazier.
Yeah, Lex goes to Luther Corp Towers and he now has 2 guns.
Yeah, he's gonna. I love that part where he's like, it's kind of funny how somebody will do whatever you want when you've got a rifle on them. It's just,
They tend to do what you ask.
yeah.
That acting, they tend to do what you ask.
It was so good.
It's because he's done. He's done. He's just like, I don't have any more F's to give.
Yeah.
He's literally just manic.
He absolutely is. And Lionel's like, it was Edge. He did the fire. It's Edge.
This is what I'm talking about.
and
This
then-
is what Lionel does.
And then I love the part because I think Lionel's a trigger for Lex. where Lionel's talking, and you see Lex kind of like crick his neck, and he's like, "Oh, Julian, I can't take it when the baby cries."
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, the acting so good. And we kind of learn that Lex killed Julian on accident in this scene.
And I was like, what?
And so that explains maybe why he freaked out in his youth.
Well, because doesn't Lionel say, I never blamed you for it? And I was like, what?
Yes.
Can we take a second to appreciate the makeup that they do on Lex throughout?
Oh, I know.
And then into the next episode too, but especially here at the end of this episode, it just gets worse and worse. The redness around his eyes.
Well, think about it.
It's amazing.
So let's say 2 nights ago, he was in that sweatshop talking to Edge, getting a confession. He probably didn't sleep the whole day in preparation, making plans.
Yes.
That confrontation happened at night. And then that same night, he was chased out of his house. Probably didn't sleep at all in the barn. And now
he's been up for 2 days.
So you've got sleep deprivation, drug
psychosis,
psychosis. Plus, he's probably coming off of the drugs that have been regularly in his system, probably keeping him relatively stable.
He had a
and the gaslighting.
Well, Darius admitted they were drugging him through a scotch,
And
which he went back and had
and he
more
just
of.
had a big sip of it.
He's got alcohol and more drugs just recently introduced.
I love that he doesn't trust the chamomile tea, but that he'll drink whiskey in his own home or whatever.
Well, at that point, he was kind of losing it a bit more, and he was just like, he was shakily taking.
Well, I think him being paranoid in the barn was because of him just having been drugged in his house from the scotch.
I love how his eyes get wider, too. He gets the crazy eyes. Oh, so good.
So Lex is given an address of where to find Morgan Edge, and Lionel says, "Be careful, son. Just be careful." And he's, I don't know what to believe with Lionel, like how much, but I think at this point, he'll do anything not to go to prison.
Yeah.
Anything.
And literally anything.
Literally. Lionel sends Lex to Morgan Edge.
After Lex backhands him with the gun.
The Edge hideaway. And he always has his meteor rocks. Lex finds Morgan Edge first. He kind of lets the whole cat out of the bag and is like, "Oh yeah, this was all a plan. We wanted you to look crazy, because if you look crazy, no one will believe you if you say dead Morgan Edge and my dad killed my grandparents."
Yeah, and it's interesting. He's like, "Do you think that I'd be in on it with him fully if I had digs like this?" And he's also adding more to Lex's craziness.
Well, Morgan Edge says, "If it was me, I just would have killed you. Problem solved. But your dad said he won't lose another child, so we had to do this whole spiel so that he wouldn't lose a kid. Because if you look crazy, he can still have his kid."
Yeah.
Then Clark shows up to save the day, but it's not good enough, because I don't really like that he grabs the gun out of Lex the way he does.
I know. I feel like Clark should have just let Lex kill Morgan
Or
Edge.
he should have just gone next to Clark, or Clark should have gotten next to Lex or something and been like, "Hey, look, 1 second, let's take care of this together." And then he wouldn't have had Lex against him. But it works out in the end the way it should. But
Lex has no idea that Clark has this reaction to
none.
meteor rock, right? So I kind of love how Lex sees that Clark is just a human, weak, I don't know. I thought it was a cute.
well, there's
detail.
like even more than that too, but he's also got the hysteria happening, so he can't really tell what's going on.
That's
fully.
true.
Morgan Edge gets in a car to run away and then run Lex over, I guess. And Lex shoots the crap out of Morgan Edge, which kills him.
Yeah.
And Morgan Edge's foot's on the gas, and so it's going to hit Lex. And so Clark, instead of speed running and pulling Morgan out of the car and doing something really fast so no one sees, decides, "I'll just stand here and be an immovable object," and then push the car away right in front of Lex's eyes. I just feel like he could have done it a different way.
Yeah.
That didn't make Lex seem crazier. He could have done it in a way that Lex never found out the secret.
Yeah.
So true.
But a cool effect.
It was
Stop
fun.
that car, rip the hood in half,
Yeah.
and then shove it back. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was good. And
then
Lex
sees
and
it.
there's that moment when Lex looks at the car and then looks at Clark and he says, "I knew it. You're not even human."
But there's no animosity in his revelation.
No.
No, not yet. Clark then runs away, leaving Lex looking even crazier.
Well,
Because he's I've got to protect my secret. What do I do?
And he just runs away.
Lex, he's on the ground and he sees what Clark is. he gets this smile on his face like, I was right. Like, all this time, I was right. And then Clark's gone.
And then the doctor shows up, and this is when now he's mad at Clark. Because Clark now abandons him
Yeah.
to be taken to a mental institution.
Yes.
Oh, I can't even. But before we get to the Belle Reef Sanitarium, we have to chat with Lana at the hospital.
This scene, oh, I hated it so bad.
There's so much I hate. She literally says, I don't hold this against Lex. Lex is the one that did this. I
She
get
blames
that-
Clark.
She blames Clark for getting her involved. I'm sorry. I understand that he probably could have gone a different way on this. He said, Lex has a problem. Will you come help? He explains that he's drugged and she needs to watch him and be careful. Lex does something and now it's Clark's fault. She takes zero accountability for any of this.
Yeah, she had full choice to be a part of it. She could have said no at any point when Clark explained the situation.
Right. Then she willingly gets into us knowing that this is a dangerous situation, that Lex may be drugged, that it's not really stable. Lex does a thing, whether she acknowledges that's the reason or not. She went into this understanding there was a risk. And she says, it's not my fault, it's Clark's fault.
Again, it's the whole thing where she will forgive everybody on planet Earth before she forgives Clark for anything.
Very annoying. But then we get to the saddest part of
I
Smallville.
hurt myself today.
I cried.
Did you?
Yes, I always have, even when I was like a teen. Seeing Lex in that yellow lit padded cell
yeah.
with his straitjacket, the one-way glass, and him just kind of mouthing words to himself.
And again, the makeup is
Miserable.
so good. He has drool on the side of his
And you hear
so
Dr.
good.
Foster and Lionel talking about the treatment plan, and you hear her say, well, he's going to have short-term memory loss because of the treatment plan you want to do. And Lionel's like, do it. It's weird because Lionel is so confusing because he's standing there tearing up watching his son be in this room, all the while knowing that he put him there.
That's what psychopaths do.
I mean, yeah.
This is so hard for me to do, but it's the thing that I need to do.
That's
No,
what every
you're just
abuser
disgusting.
does.
Yeah. It's so sad. Just seeing Lex like that
Lex needed an award for this episode,
I know.
for sure.
is so good. And it just breaks my heart because we know he's not crazy.
Yeah.
And just the things that he had to live through.
And then it just ends. I can't.
Okay, so what are we saying? Super or man?
So super.
So super. Even if no super things had happened in this episode, the super acting of Michael Rosenbaum.
Super.
It's incredible.
It's too good.
That's what I was going to say. Nothing super really happened, but you have to see this to continue the story, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this is the reward that we get as watchers by watching crap like Magnetic and
Yeah.
the other weird filler episodes that help but aren't incredible. They're just episodes because we get this as a payoff. And it is 100% worth it. So when you hear us complain about meh episodes, it's because episodes like this one will linger in my, whenever I hear that song, I Hurt Myself Today, I think of this. I think of this moment of Lex in the padded cell forever.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So good.
Now I will join you.
I mean, this episode is up there with really intense episodes of Grey's Anatomy,
Yeah.
that tug at your heartstrings. It's so good.
Oh, yeah.
On that note,
On that note, I don't know what else to say other than this is an episode worth watching. This episode is what brings Smallville up. And if you can't see that, then I don't even know what to do with you.
If you haven't already, go watch it now. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for remembering Smallville with us. Join us next week when
Lex paints a picture.
Lionel strokes Lex's face.
and Clark goes bowling.
Four friends on a mission: Daniel, Nicole, Brad, and Kim. Talking Smallville every week. The podcast a gem. Smallville nights we laugh out loud. Every week they make us proud. Daniel, Nicole, Brad, and Kim. In the world we find our thrill. Heroes fire, legends grow. flow. From Clark Kent to Lexus schemes, they uncover every dream. Smallville nights we laugh out loud. Every week they make us proud. Daniel, Nicole, Brad, and Kim. In the world we find our thrill. You're watching tales of old. Their voices pure gold. Every twist, every turn, with them there's much to learn. Smallville nights we laugh out loud. Every week they make us proud. Daniel, Nicole, Brad, and Kim. In the